Facepalm America, I'm Beowulf Rockland. FacepalmAmerica.com is where you can get more information about the show, listen to past episodes, and connect with us on social media if that's something you want to do. If you're a user of Twitter, I still refuse to say the new version. You can go to @FacepalmUSA. That's where you can connect with us, talk at us. And if you want to send a message or even give us a call, you can do that at 202-656-6271. I have said on this program before that I am just enormously frustrated with the economic data that comes to us through most of the media. Even what I identify as very progressive media will take the numbers, especially in terms of job numbers, unemployment numbers, and just kind of nod their head, accept that as real. And so often we see around us like signs and indications and experiences of actual human beings that contradict that. And I, as a result, want to welcome back to the show Gene Ludwig. We've spoken before, but I think it's really important to emphasize just how inaccurate these economic numbers are. He's the head of the Ludwig Institute for Shared Economic Prosperity. Gene, welcome back to Facepalm America. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, it's really great to be with you. Honored to be with you, Wolf. This has been a very important topic, and I'm glad you're taking it so seriously. And I hope your listeners will enjoy what we have to say. Not happy, but
it really is important because we keep hearing, and we've heard in recent months that unemployment is way down. There's hundreds of thousands of jobs being created, and the first question I have that you actually answered pretty extensively in a recent article is, what is a job? When the government says there's a new job and that it's been created, what does that actually mean?
Well, it includes anybody who has worked at all in a prior 2-week period. In other words, if you worked for 15 minutes an hour, you're counted as having a job, even if you wanted to have a full-time job. I'm not talking about people who want to work part-time. I'm talking about people who want to work full-time and can't.
Right.
So that's counted as a job. We, for purposes of our own definition of what a real job is, do not include somebody who can't get a full-time job if they want it.
Right.
The other thing is that you've got a job, according to the government statistics, the headline statistics, even if you earn a poverty wage, and a poverty wage in America is below more or less $25,000 a year. Right. So if you earn not enough really to put food on your table, or have a roof over your head, and you're not able to work enough to basically get the wage you need, you're still counted as having a job, which we think is a mistake. We think it creates a real class of what we call functionally unemployed. That is, as a practical matter, they're really unemployed.
Right. So you hear about these hundreds of thousands of jobs that are being created from the official government numbers. And what that can often mean is that, yes, there are quote-unquote jobs, but they can be extremely minimal in terms of the hours, in terms of the pay, and that in order to cobble together any kind of actual existence, people need maybe 2 or 3 of them in order to just barely get by.
They can't get that. Yeah, no, we count. If somebody has 2 or 3 jobs, they can get up to what would be a full-time employment.
Right.
That'd be functioning from our perspective employed. I'm talking about people who can't even cobble together 2 or 3 things to get a full-time job. By the way, one woman put it this way. I thought was really a cool way to characterize her life in terms of not being able to have a really functional job with enough wages to live on. And she said, there's the upper class, the lower class, the this class, that class. She says, I'm the hanging on by my fingernails class.
That's right.
And I think
That's right.
That's where too many Americans are. They're barely hanging on.
Yeah, and that's just not reflected in the numbers because, recently I think the unemployment rate raised just barely from 3.7 to 3.9%. That sounds like everybody's doing fine. But what you guys measure at the Ludwig Institute for Shared Economic Prosperity is the true rate of unemployment, and that jumped recently from 23.3% to 24.9%, and that's the highest level since July of 2021. To start with, how do you measure the true rate of unemployment? What are the metrics that you use?
Okay, we take the government statistics, what is often referred to as a fancy name as U3, which are just what when they say 3.9%, that's what they're the media are touting, the U3, which are they count everybody, but the problem is that the definition, which you and I just discussed, the definition which was formed in the 1930s out of concepts of the 1890s. In those days, you either had a job in the factory or you didn't have a job. If you had a job in the factory, for the most part, you had a full-time job. There were very few part-time jobs. Yeah. And there might be overtime, but you had a real job.
The gig economy did not exist at that point.
The gig economy did not exist, but the more we've had this gig economy where people grab a little work in Uber, they're a little work delivering food and right. DoorDash or whatever, and they can't get a full-time gig. That's real for people, and it means that counting them as fully employed, which is what the headline statistics do, seems to me to be not in line with what the American people expect, and it gives us a false sense of how well we're doing.
So I don't necessarily want to urge you into the realm of speculation, but why do you think it is, and I understand that you deal in hard numbers, why do you think it is that if these numbers that the Department of Labor provides and that the media so thoroughly and unquestioningly propagates are so inaccurate, why do they keep getting pushed out there? Is it force of habit? Is it that they haven't investigated it? And if the Bureau, presumably the people at the Bureau of Labor, Department of Labor, are not stupid people. They've got to know, in a sense, that this does not really reflect what's actually going on. Why do they keep producing this number?
Well, it's hard in big bureaucracies to change, to change. And in our market-based economy, right, everybody likes to talk their book, whether it is somebody selling a product or running for election or whatever they do, right? We tend to have a tilt towards optimism,
right?
And where the numbers are historic, and there's not a lot of groundswell to change them, we sort of fall in the same old rut. Now, I'm happy to say that our getting these numbers out, which we've done for a little over a year, is beginning to make a difference. We expect, and we've signed a contract. We do this for free. with Bloomberg, and Bloomberg is going to begin to put these on their site, which is
fantastic.
A great thing.
That's great.
A great thing because people will see that regularly. And Beowulf, you're fulfilling a very important civic duty, it seems to me, in getting this out, because the more we can get people focusing on reality, the better off we are. We're completely neutral. This is not left. This isn't right. We're not trying to. We think policymakers, regardless of their political persuasion, ought to be dealing with the facts. And our goal really is to get the BLS to change their headline statistics, or at least include ours alongside what they're putting out today.
Let me ask you a question. Is the way this information is conveyed, it seems, I'm glad to hear that it's changing. And I'm glad that as big a disseminator of economic data as Bloomberg is realizing the need for something like this. But, as we know, changes is slow in coming. Certainly in the United States, this continues to be a big problem. What is the state globally of information? Like, do international news sources depend on better sources of information from their individual governments, or is this a problem that's common around the globe?
As best we can tell, it is common. We focused heavily on the United States, but let me give you an example. One of the headline data points that's used globally is, in essence, the GDP. How fast is the economy growing, right? You read in the paper, you hear in the news, GDP is up 3%, right. GDP is up 2%. It makes you feel good. But the fact is that's an enormous aggregate. And while the name of it is GDP stands for gross domestic product, right. Most people would think that it means what's produced, actually produced, made domestically within your country. But that's not what it means at all. It's really more of a consumption index. So it doesn't mean that we're increasing production in the United States and therefore increasing good jobs. If a car company makes all their cars abroad, but the money actually comes to one place in the United States and the cars are sold here, even though there's no meaningful job increase in the United States, or it's very small, it's included in an increase in GDP.
Right.
And furthermore, GDP doesn't tell us this. GDP may be going up, but it's GDP, what I like to say, GDP for whom?
Right.
Who is getting that bump up? And what part of the United States is getting that bump up? Right. So the numbers not, and this is a global problem. Right. The number's not wholly revealing in terms of what one thinks it means on the one hand. On the other hand, because it's a huge aggregate, it varies tremendously within a country, area to area. And furthermore, it depends on where you are in the society, who's winning and who's losing. It doesn't tell us that either.
Right.
And that is a global number problem.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, the gross domestic product doesn't take into account like big sectors of the functional economy. If you are if you're doing housework or things that just don't fall into certain economic categories, that doesn't get counted. And so it really is a focus, as you say, of like certain things that are being consumed, that doesn't take teachers and firefighters and so forth into account. Am I correct on that?
It certainly does not take into account household work. Right. So if I take off the week so I can really do house cleaning at home, right. That's not increasing the GDP.
Right.
Even though that's an important service, or if so, that's not. So it's a very imperfect measure. But I'll tell you, when you look at this true and the headline data about jobs in the United States, the reason it's jumped up in large part is because of the inflation we have. Mm-hmm. And wages have not been keeping pace, except in some lower income jobs, but has largely not been keeping pace with inflation. Now, to be fair, and by the way, it's worse for minorities, worse for Black Americans,
Right.
Hispanic